Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
And welcome back to Twisted Tales, folks. Hope everybody had a wicked weekend. Now it's back to work for the week. So yay. Alright, so my next story, we're going to talk about the Cape Breton 3. It's a pretty well-known story back home. Now this happened on July 10th, 1970, on a nice summer day. So it's a pretty tragic story of the death of three young men. 20-year-old Terry Burt of Sydney, Nova Scotia, 17-year-old David Burrows of Sydney River, and 15-year-old Kenny Novak, also of Sydney River. Now the boys were run over by a train heading its usual route on the Bangor and Aroostook railway line. Now most of it being nothing but wilderness of Smyrna Mills, Maine. Now, this is about 45 kilometers from the Canadian border. So the accident happened on a Friday morning around 7 a.m. Now a 20-car train was heading north to Houston, Maine, and it just rounded the sharp turn there. So the engineer saw what he thought would be debris on the train tracks, and he slowly applied his brakes. So traveling about 40 miles an hour, it'd kind of be hard to stop on a dime. So the conductor's name was Earl Capon, and there was also an onboard fireman named Ralph Fowler. So both kind of blazed on the horn there, try to, see what was going on. And they noticed it wasn't debris at all. It was actually sleeping bags lined up. So there was like 3 sleeping bags on the train tracks. And he's like, "There's sleeping bags," he yelled. Like, "What do we do?" And eventually they just hit the brakes. All the hot metal, sparks flew. And it's kind of hard to stop like 800 tons of machinery. But, it was too late. There was no way the train could stop in time. And all the train cars had ran over the sleeping bags, along with the people that was inside of them. After everything was said and done, the train pretty much came to a full stop about 150 feet away from the sleeping bags. And as they all hopped out and they checked the scene out, there was dismembered and crushed body parts all over the place, all on the tracks, the grass areas, even beyond the tracks. Now, belongings and clothing were strewn about. Everything was ripped and shredded from the moving train or being drugged from underneath. And they got on the horn and the radio dispatched about the accident. So, police were alerted pretty quickly. Foul play was actually ruled out by the sheriff once they got on the scene. And there was only one question that remained. Like, why did the boys lay in the middle of the tracks, of all places? So when police arrived, it was really hard for them to try and identify the bodies of the victims. It appeared to be 3 men with no means of identification. Like, all they could find in the turmoil of the wreck was, like, some Canadian cigarettes, some canned goods, a couple maps, some camping equipment, and some bloody stationery from a New Brunswick hotel. Now, there was also a few Canadian bills in one of the victims' wallets, about $5 worth, along with another empty Canadian wallet. There was no ID cards, nothing like that could be found. But there was a clue found over time by police amongst the shredded sleeping bags. It was actually a hand-sewn label that read, Terry Burt, 54. It was Connaught Street, Sydney, Nova Scotia, So this was mostly confirming what police had thought already, that the boys were from Canada, Nova Scotia to be exact. Over time, the Aroostook County Sheriff's Office touched base with the RCMP to help find the identity of the boys. Now, while waiting on this, the bodies went to Holton, at Dunn's funeral home, so they were awaiting an autopsy done by the county district attorney. So on Saturday, the local medical examiner and the sheriff, Darrell Crandall, began to prep for the upcoming autopsy. So they began with the body in the best condition, believing to be a teenager with light brown hair. The right arm had been broken, bone was protruding from the compound fracture on the upper arm. The right lower leg had been badly broken at the shin. The two shin bones were visible. All the bones at the base of the skull were broken. Left shoulder dislocated, torn skin, and with bruising on the entire body from the hit of the powerful train. The second body was worse, with head almost severed. The face was unrecognizable. The left arm and the left leg were sheared off from the train. The third body was just like the second, just pretty mangled up, disfigured, and it was in pieces. So after the autopsy and the assistance from the RCMP, they had identified the three youths. And that was Kenneth Novak, David Burrows, and Terry Burt. They're all residents of around the Sydney area of Cape Breton Island. Now, let's just get into a little detail about who these boys are. So Terry Burt would be the oldest of the three. He was 20 years old. He grew up in Whitney Pier. Known by friends to be polite and thoughtful. He loved music, listened to like Jethro Tull, all that shit. He had a motorcycle that he loved driving around. He took great pride in that. Showing his friends, hey, come for a ride, go hang out. Just a nice kid. David Burrows, he was 17. Some say he hasn't changed his appearance from junior high to high school. He'd grown his hair out a little bit of a free spirit. But lots of friends stated that they had lots of fond memories with him. Kenny Novak was 15. Tall and slender boy, kind of light curly brown hair. Described as sweet and thoughtful by most. And he could hang out with any crowd. He was pretty popular with everybody that he hung out with. And just for one reason or another, they decided to hitchhike 500 miles away to Holton, Maine. And we've all had crazier ideas, right? So, it was Sunday, July 5th. Kenny's mom, Isabel, she drove Kenny and Terry up to the Cape Breton Highlands National Park, just so the boys could chill out in the campground up in Ingonish and, relax at the beach in the area. And hitchhiking was a big thing back then. It was just a means of transportation to get around. And eventually David Burrows had joined the group, along with a boy named Alan. Now, Alan recalls never meeting David, and says that David came up with the idea of hitchhiking to the States. Kind of rumored that, the boys would meet up with some girls from Boston and the D.C. area. So they decided to visit them, and they made up their minds to hit the journey up, all except Alan. He decided to head back to Sydney, pretty much saving his life. The Aroostook County Sheriff's Office mentioned that the three had crossed the border near Holton, and they didn't even alert Border Patrol. So they're assuming this was around 11 p.m. on Thursday, July 9th. And at one point during the boys' trip, they ended up at an ice cream shop. This is about 1.5 miles from the Canadian border. So as the boys were walking up to the ice cream shop, two guys were exiting. This would be Royden Hunt, 20-year-old, and his friend Mike. So the boys asked to bum a ride through town. Now, the two agreed as they were just leaving anyways. So they all carried on, hopped in the vehicle, and just kind of enjoying the summer night. Roy remembers the young boys to be late teens, just a little bit disheveled looking, and carrying backpacks. Now, during the ride, Kenny had fallen asleep, and Terry and David just smoked cigarettes and chatted about the trip. And Royden had remembered Terry mentioning going to go visit a girl in Washington, D.C. So, around 11:45, the boys were dropped off at the Smyrna exit on the interstate. They thanked him for the ride and ventured into the woods. And what happened to the boys after that, nobody knows. Just a short time after that, the train would strike them on the tracks. The Aroostook County Sheriff's Office ruled the incident as an accident. Police said the boys were fast asleep when they were struck by the train, and the autopsy concluded that they were killed on impact, so this kind of rules out any foul play. Studies show that trains usually take at least a mile to stop after the emergency brake is pulled, so it kind of just sucks that this happened. I mean, my heart goes out to the families and everybody involved in this. Like, why would the boys lay on the train tracks? You know, maybe they were tired. There's lots of possibilities that we'll never know, right? There's a Facebook group created for this as well. I can put a link in the description here for you guys if you want to check it out. But yeah, that's my little tale here, and I hope you guys have yourself a wonderful day. Take care and enjoy your work week. Thanks for tuning back in.
Twisted Tales.